If you call a spade, you'll get labeled all types of names. Imagine Scott Agnes criticizing South Carolina and Asia Wilson fans for going after Caitlin Clark during her rookie season. Imagine the backlash.
Imagine being so triggered by fans clapping that you publish an essay like it's part of the Sith recruitment process. One Indiana Fever reporter just labeled Caitlin Clark supporters as the dark side of the Force, foam fingers and all. In today's episode of Journalists Gone Wild, we break down the viral spiral that's got people wondering if the WNBA accidentally rebranded as the MCU. Relax, grab popcorn. This drama is shooting hotter than Caitlin from deep.
In an article, he put something in there, and I don't know if he thought it was going to be a side note to his article, but you cannot call Caitlin Clark fans the dark side of the fandom. No, that wasn't the greatest or smartest idea in the world.
Picture this. Caitlin Clark, the player who single-handedly dragged women's college basketball from the shadows into primetime television, is now the target of a hit piece authored by a sports journalist with the emotional stability of a deflated basketball. And this wasn't some throwaway paragraph. No, this was a full-scale viral tantrum typed out with trembling fingers and aimed not at Caitlin, because that would require courage, but at her fans. Yes, the audacity. The people who showed up, cheered loudly, and dared to support her. Absolutely unforgivable.
This is really disappointing from a journalist so closely linked to the Indiana Fever organization. This is really, really disappointing, and it's really concerning in my opinion, because it is painting a 23-year-old on their team who is currently injured.
Apparently this reporter, let's call him the torchbearer of trash takes, has decided that anyone who cheers for Caitlin Clark is officially part of the dark side. That's right, move over Darth Vader, because wearing a number 22 Fever jersey and clapping after a three-pointer is now a full-blown Sith-level offense. At this point, all we're missing is John Williams cueing ominous music every time someone buys her merch.
Imagine Scott Agnes writing an article about the Reese's Pieces and all their negative vitriol, shout out to L. Duncan, that's been targeted to Caitlin Clark. Imagine the backlash he would receive. But what's the safe way out? What's the safest way to big up the Indiana Fever? Well, you tear down Caitlin Clark's fan.
Meanwhile, Indiana Fever management is out here doing the absolute most of nothing. They're stumbling around like it's a Scooby-Doo episode, desperately trying to solve the mystery of why Caitlin Clark fans are upset, when the answer is staring them right in the face. You've got the most electrifying rookie in WNBA history playing in a league where the officiating makes the WWE look like the Harvard Debate Club.
This is very sad, very disappointing. It's disgusting that Caitlin Clark has to be subjected to this nonsense, and enough's enough. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. She needs to come out and draw the line in the sand, and it would not shock me if at some point, man, Caitlin Clark is just done with this.
Let's start with the league, shall we? The WNBA, in all its infinite wisdom, took Caitlin Clark, the woman who dropped 40-point triple-doubles like she was handing out Skittles in Iowa, and dropped her into a system where referees look like they graduated from the How to Be Petty in 3 Easy Calls seminar. Every game now feels like a Shakespearean tragedy, directed by someone whose entire basketball education comes from Twitter arguments.
Yesterday, they also announced the skills competition for the WNBA All-Star team. And she didn't make that either. So you argued she wasn't good for the Olympics. Your argument, though I don't buy it, but it was your argument, women's basketball, that she would be a distraction. So isn't the perfect place to put her in the skills competition?
The NCAA treated Caitlin Clark like a phenomenon. The WNBA treats her like a freshman at Mean Girls High. If the NCAA was the supportive guidance counselor hyping her up from the sidelines, the WNBA is Regina George asking why she's so obsessed with being talented. We went from Game of the Week coverage to Game of the Weekend, if nobody else is available. Because obviously, showcasing your most marketable athlete is terrible business strategy. But let's pivot to this reporter. A man so allergic to accountability he probably needs an EpiPen every time someone mentions the word objectivity. He's not just reporting anymore. Oh no, he's educating us. According to him, if you support Caitlin Clark, you're toxic. Not because you're loud, rude, or harassing anyone, but because you exist. It's the kind of journalism that makes you wonder if his degree came free inside a cereal box. This is the same guy who, when called out for ignoring blatant foul play against Clark, pivoted harder than a yoga instructor during a power outage. Accuracy, apparently, is optional when you're writing from a bunker of bitterness. He tells us the Fever,
winners of 7 of 9. The Fever are playing connect.
And that he's endured so much hate. Really? Because last time we checked, Caitlin Clark has been verbally assaulted on and off the court, elbowed in the face, fouled with the grace of a flying anvil, and still shows up to press conferences saying nothing but polite thank yous. Meanwhile, this reporter has a digital panic attack every time someone in the comments asks him to acknowledge reality. What's truly wild is that this guy has never, and we mean never, called out the cheap shots aimed at Clark. Not when she was shoved. Not when she was hacked like someone was trying to steal her soul. Not when she got body checked on layups. Nothing. Zero. But suddenly, he's got enough energy to write a 1,200-word essay explaining why her fans are the real problem. And let's talk about that fan base, shall we? Because the way this man talks about Clark's supporters is Olympic-level spinning. He twists himself into such rhetorical pretzels it's a miracle Auntie Anne's hasn't filed a trademark claim. Every time someone tries to talk actual basketball, he redirects like a dad dodging emotional questions. Let's not discuss how she got flattened with no whistle. Let's talk about how you're a bad fan for noticing.
Nasty, nasty. If y'all don't know who Scott Agnes is, he's a guy that's he's very close to the team. He gets a lot of access. He's in the practices. He's interviewing the players at practice. He's interviewing the players pre-game, post-game. He is very close with the team and has a lot of access to the players and the team.
Even more pathetic is how this whole thing has turned into a cottage industry of envy. The WNBA has been begging for mainstream attention for decades. Now they finally land someone who brings eyeballs, sponsors, ticket sales, and jersey orders so intense they crash websites. And somehow the greatest sin she's committed is being too successful. This is starting to feel like that one coworker who never does their job, then gets furious when someone else gets promoted. Except instead of awkward office tension, we've got elbows, ejections, and one very angry man with a WordPress login. And while we're at it, let's address the classic line, she's not the only rookie. Well, thank you, Professor Basketball. Yes, we're aware other rookies exist, and some of them are fantastic. But apparently if you buy a Caitlin Clark jersey, you're one emotional tweet away from being labeled a cult leader. And here's the grand irony no one wants to admit. The same reporters and pundits who spend all day criticizing Caitlin Clark's fans are only relevant because of Caitlin Clark. If she weren't in the league, half of them would be live tweeting pickleball tournaments and posting Waffle House reviews.
The ignorance is loud here, folks. They're only there for Clark. Boy, you stepped in it. But that dark side can easily seep into the team. The Caitlin Clark fans, the dark side. Because they're very passionate about a player, and yes, they've put their money where their mouth is. So these people, these fans, feel invested.
This man literally built a platform out of not supporting her. He's the anti-fans fan club president. His entire brand is shouting into the void about how Caitlin Clark is overrated, then gaslighting anyone who points out the obvious. She's not just good, she's revolutionary. Let's be real. If Caitlin Clark played in a league where professionalism was standard and favoritism wasn't the marketing strategy, she'd be in MVP conversation every week. Instead, she's out here surviving defensive ambushes like she's auditioning for Gladiator, while refs sip herbal tea and stare at the scoreboard. And the worst part? Every time she shows humility, class, and restraint, traits that should be celebrated, they get twisted into reasons to criticize her. Why doesn't she fight back? Why is she so quiet? Maybe because the microscope is already glued to her face, blinking red, and she doesn't need to feed trolls who haven't watched a full game without bias since flip phones were in fashion. Let's not forget, this woman brings millions of dollars of value into a league that couldn't sell out a concession stand 5 years ago. Fans are finally engaged with women's basketball on a national level. And some corners of the media? You clap too loudly. Please stop liking her. It'd be funny if it wasn't so utterly pathetic.